So pockets and ties are all done. And now we need to think about the skirt. But before we do that, what you're going to do is you're going to take your bodice to the ironing board and press under 1 centimetre on the lining. So that's going to be pressed towards the inside of the bodice, because what will happen is we will put our skirt on the outside of the bodice, right sides together, and then this will be slip stitched down to hold it in place, and we have no raw edges then. So that's the first thing to do, to go and press under the centimetre on your lining. There are a few options for the skirt, whether you want to gather. I tend to gather pinnies. I like the gathering for a pinny. This young lady here has got a gathered skirt on her pinny, so she's open at the sides with the 4 ties and she's gathered. But this young lady, this is a pinafore, and this has knife pleats. And I think it's my favourite kind of pleat because they are so crisp and lovely. This is wool suiting, and it absolutely takes gorgeous pleats. So yeah, I love that one. Or there's the inverted pleats, which let me stand up, which I've got on this one. So you can do any of them, and I'll go through it with you. We'll do the gathers first, and then I'll show you how to do the pleats for the pinafore. And putting the skirt onto the pinafore is slightly different too. So we'll move these young ladies out of the way. So I've got a bit of space. Don't want you crowding me, thank you. So we've got our bodice, and what I've done is on one of the outside pieces, I've divided it up into 3. So all I've done is folded it in half and put a pin at that point, then folded that half into quarters and put pins at those points. So this is for the gathering. On the largest stitch on your machine, it's a 5 on mine, so the largest stitch you're going to stitch about, this isn't critical, but it's about 1/4 inch from the top. And then because I can move my needle over to the left, I then move the needle over to the left and do another row of the long stitches with the foot up against that 1/4 inch seam. Now this is different. I've got to give a shout out to Wendy Gross Constance here, because I had always put my 2 rows of stitching in my seam allowance. But it wasn't until Wendy was saying, when she was doing a demo on Sewing Street, that if you put your 2nd row of stitching further away from the original one, so it's actually in the skirt, not in the seam allowance, when you gather them up, you don't get any of the twisted gathers, because sometimes you can get gathers that actually twist and then they make the fabric go a bit funny on the skirt. So what you do is you then pull them up, and your seam allowance is going to be in between those 2 rows of stitching. So once you've done it, you just take out the one that's actually being seen. So you don't leave it there, you just take it out. And when you're gathering, you always pull up the bobbin thread. So these are my top threads. So I'm going to pull those. And then the ones at the bottom are my bobbin threads. So they're the ones that I'll pull up. So I've made 1/4 marks in my skirt as well. So I've folded that in half and then half again, and I've put a pin at those points. And these points, this linen's very open weave, it's all coming out. So I need to put my right side of my bodice to the right side of my skirt. So my center pin will go against this center pin. So I'll take one out and put that back in. Like that. Try not to put your pins through your thread, because then when you're pulling up your threads, you don't want to snag with your pins. So that's another one there. I'll take that one out. And then this one here. Obviously it's not critical that they're exact, but it's just a nice way of doing it. Now at the outside edge of your skirt, that isn't actually going to go to the outside edge of your bodice, because you're going to have, when you've put your ties in, when your skirt's on, you'll then put your ties in, and you're going to have a seam for the pinafore coming down here on each of your pieces of bodice. So what you need to do is you need to put your skirt, the outside edge, 1 centimetre in. Oh, I omitted, did I say in my last little clip that you hem the side seams and the hem at the bottom? You do all that first for the pinny, not for the pinafore, just for the pinny. So this is going to be placed 1 centimetre away from the outside edge. And then you're just going to pull up your stitches. Let me just do this end here as well. There we go. So this one's going to be 1 centimetre away. And then we're just going to gather up all our stitches using our bobbin thread. So that's my top thread. We'll go here, separate those up, and pull up both of the threads at the same time, and then you should get nice even gathers. Now you can, if you want to, once you've got to the first pin, you can carry on gathering because it will go past the pin. Or what I tend to do is get to my first pin and gather that up so that I've got the right amount of fabric, because you can go back afterwards and even up the gathers. So I've got my right amount of fabric there. Now if I take a pin from here, and I'll take a stitch in the center there and a stitch there, I can start my gathers from the center. Whoops, that's it. So now if I get hold of my 2 threads, I can get my finger in there and there. I can gather from the center so that I don't have any trouble getting over the pins at the quarter points. So then I've got that there, and I'll just pull those up that side. If I turn it around so that you can see what I'm doing. So I'm pulling up this side first. So that's a good length. There we are. And then I'll turn my attention to the other side of the threads and pull that up so that it's the right length, which is there. And then at this end, I'll go from the side seam. And I'll pull that one up. Oh, that one's caught on something. Whoops. Is it the pin? Yes, it is. There you go. I said don't do that, didn't I? And I went and did it. So it's a centimetre away. I'm back into patchwork mode, 1/4 of an inch. So we'll go there. And then we'll pull those up until we've got the right length. And then now, oops, now we can even out the gathers, because we know we've got the right amount of fabric in each of the quarters. So I can sit and play around with the gathers so that they're nicely even. And I don't want to leave a gap where the pin is, so I'll take them right at the pin. But if you can see there, they're really nice even gathers, because if I was doing it the way I used to, I would actually be sewing on these for my seams, whereas I'm going to sew through the center of the gathers. So this is going to take a while, because I'm a bit of a faff really when I'm doing my gathers. So I'll do that and we'll come back and we'll look at the pleats.